A man who walks alone is not lost. He's just not going where the crowd is headed. There's a myth that Sigma males are simply loners or mysterious versions of the alpha. But truth is, Sigma doesn't just walk a different path. He rewrites the map. And in that path, there's one personality type that always, without fail, ends up shattered when confronted with a Sigma's presence. Not by force, not by noise, but by the sheer incompatibility of operating systems. You see, Sigma males don't seek dominance in the traditional sense. They disrupt by nature. They bring friction into ecosystems built on ego, validation, hierarchy, and approval. And in that disruption, certain personalities crumble, not because the Sigma attacks, but because their identity depends on everything a Sigma refuses to be. Ascenders, today we step into the psychological battlefield, not the loud one, but the quiet war of energy, intention, and awareness. This isn't a list, it's a profile, a blueprint of destruction. So if you're ready to understand the kind of personality that Sigma males always destroy, and more importantly why, then grab your mental gear. We're going in deep. And before we do, smash that subscribe button like you're rejecting a false identity. Sigma Ascends isn't just content, it's your mind's exit plan from the Matrix. Welcome to the Silent Rebellion. 1. The Noise Merchant. This personality lives off volume, verbal, visual, digital. Everything about them screams, "Look at me." They thrive in crowded rooms, echo chambers, and applause. Their identity is built on reaction. If people stop reacting, they vanish. Now drop a Sigma male into that room. The Sigma doesn't match energy. He neutralizes it. He listens more than he speaks. He observes, dissects, and understands motivations behind noise. That alone unravels the noise merchant. Why? Because their power collapses in the presence of someone who refuses to give them a stage. The noise merchant needs attention like oxygen. The Sigma male doesn't offer it, not out of rudeness, but out of indifference. His energy is not reactive, it's gravitational. People shift toward him without him trying, while the noise merchant screams into the void trying to compete. This creates an existential panic. The noise merchant begins escalating. Louder jokes, bigger stories, overcompensation. But Sigma doesn't flinch, and the crowd starts to feel the contrast. One is loud, the other is anchored. And in that comparison, the merchant's noise sounds like desperation. Sigma doesn't need to challenge. His silence is confrontation enough. It says, "I see you, but I don't need you." And to someone who survives on being needed or noticed, that's a fatal blow. Eventually, the noise merchant burns out. Either they explode in frustration or shrink back, confused about why their usual tactics failed. That's when they learn. Sigma doesn't destroy by striking. He destroys by staying unshaken. 2. The Echo Seeker. The Echo Seeker doesn't have opinions, they collect them. They mimic the room. Their entire personality is a mirror reflecting what they think people want. When you agree with them, they feel validated. When you don't, they adjust to fit you. Their survival is based on acceptance at all costs. So what happens when they face a Sigma male? The Sigma doesn't echo back. He doesn't validate for the sake of comfort. In fact, his presence alone demands authenticity. He doesn't care if you agree with him. He doesn't bend to social norms or emotional cues meant to draw sympathy. He's unfiltered, not out of rebellion, but because he's self-defined. This is hell for the Echo Seeker. They try everything, flattery, mimicry, agreement. But Sigma doesn't bite. He sees the act. And worse, he calls it out silently by not reacting. That silence says everything. I know you're not real. The Echo Seeker depends on connection through imitation, but Sigma doesn't connect through surface similarities. He connects through truth, depth, substance. If he doesn't find that, he walks. quietly, without warning. To the echo seeker, that rejection feels like annihilation, because Sigma's withdrawal isn't just social, it's existential. It says, "You don't exist to me because you don't exist to you." Eventually, the echo seeker spirals. They start questioning their own identity. That's not cruelty, it's clarity. Sigma doesn't destroy the echo seeker by attacking them. He just forces them to realize you can't reflect someone who doesn't play the mirror game. 3. The tribe clinger. You know this type. Can't function outside the group. Needs approval, consensus, backup. Their decisions are crowd-filtered. Their moves are always we-based. They're the human embodiment of the phrase, "What will people think?" Enter Sigma, the man who doesn't care what anyone thinks. Sigma's detachment triggers the tribe clinger's deepest fear, abandonment. But not physical abandonment, social detachment. The tribe clinger sees the Sigma walking alone and interprets it as isolation. But to the Sigma, that's where the magic happens. Sigma makes decisions based on logic, mission, values, not groupthink. The tribe clinger interprets this as arrogance or rebellion. But it's neither. It's just sovereignty. And sovereignty looks terrifying when your identity depends on the pack. Here's the real kicker. When others see Sigma move alone, many start following him. Not because he asked, but because his independence is magnetic. The tribe clinger watches their group gravitate towards someone who isn't even trying. That breaks them. They try to mimic the Sigma, act detached, pretend confident, but it's obvious. Forced solitude has a different smell than chosen solitude. And Sigma? He can tell. In the end, the tribe clinger either lashes out or clings harder. Both responses backfire, because the more they need connection, the more the Sigma becomes a mirror of what they'll never be, whole on their own. 4. The hierarchy worshipper. This type lives by ranks, who's above who's allowed to speak. They obey authority blindly, equating title with truth. To them, social status is law, and rebellion is foolishness. Sigma isn't rebellious by nature. He's just wired outside the system. He doesn't challenge hierarchies because he hates them. He challenges them because he doesn't need them. That's infuriating to the hierarchy worshipper. They've spent their whole life learning how to play the game, kiss the right rings, climb the invisible ladders, and then comes a Sigma who walks past the ladder and builds his own tower. Worshippers crave approval from the top. Sigma doesn't look up or down. He moves horizontally, across systems through ideas, skipping steps entirely. That creates friction and sometimes fear. Because when others see the Sigma succeed without playing by the rules, the illusion of hierarchy cracks. That illusion is the worshipper's religion. If it breaks, so does their sense of meaning. Eventually, they try to undermine the Sigma, call him arrogant, say he thinks he's above everyone. But that only confirms the point. The Sigma isn't in their hierarchy. He's in his own lane. The Sigma doesn't destroy the worshipper by fighting them. He destroys them by proving that obedience doesn't guarantee greatness. 5. The status chaser. This personality is wired for appearances. They obsess over external wins, the car, the title, the verified checkmark. Their moves are calculated to attract admiration, not out of joy, but out of insecurity. To them, success must be seen to be real. The Sigma male walks in and flips that entire script. Sigma doesn't chase status. He evaporates it. His value isn't based on what he owns or who knows his name. It's based on what he knows, how he thinks, and what he can build in silence. That alone breaks the status chaser's mental algorithm. See, the status chaser needs validation loops. They post to be praised. They show off to be envied. When Sigma doesn't react, doesn't clap, doesn't comment, doesn't care. It's a gut punch. Worse, others start to respect Sigma more for his quiet dominance. That's when the panic sets in. The status chaser starts upping the show. New gear, bigger flex, forced charisma. But again, Sigma's still water drowns their noise. Because while the status chaser is busy building a castle of sand, the Sigma is laying foundation in places no one sees. The irony? Sigma often achieves more, internally and externally, without announcing it. And that silence feels like a threat to someone who needs applause to feel alive. Eventually, the status chaser burns out. Because you can only chase shadows for so long before you realize the guy who sat quietly in the back, he already won, and he never needed an audience to prove it. 6. The mirror identity. This personality has no center. They adapt to every environment like a chameleon, not out of flexibility, but out of fear. They borrow identities. Today they're driven. Tomorrow they're chill. They change depending on who they're around. Their only skill is mimicry. Enter Sigma. The Sigma male doesn't adapt to fit in. He stands still and forces the world to adjust to him. He's not aggressive, he's anchored. And when the mirror identity tries to reflect him, they break. Why? Because there's nothing in Sigma to copy. He's too internal, too layered, too intentional. The mirror identity operates in shallow waters. Sigma lives deep. So what happens? The mirror tries harder, picks up his phrases, mirrors his calmness, adopts his silence, but it comes off forced, artificial. Because the Sigma didn't learn silence, he earned it. People notice the difference. One is still pretending, the other embodies it. That contrast begins to feel unbearable. The mirror identity looks at the Sigma and sees what they wish they were, but no, they're not. That realization crushes them. They try to keep up, but the more they imitate, the more lost they feel. Because the Sigma doesn't leave breadcrumbs. He's not a blueprint. He's a force of nature, unique, self-forged, uninterested in trend followers. Eventually, the mirror identity either fades or self-destructs, not because Sigma attacked them, but because he never acknowledged the game. And when someone doesn't play your game, they already won. 7. The oversharer. This type bleeds vulnerability. They think connection comes from constant exposure. They'll spill life stories within minutes, overshare their trauma, talk too much. And if you don't respond with equal emotional weight, they feel rejected. Now drop a Sigma male into that moment. The Sigma doesn't overshare. He measures words. He chooses what to reveal and when. His boundaries are firm. His privacy is sacred. And that's not emotional coldness. It's emotional discipline. To the oversharer, that feels like ice. They open up to get closeness. The Sigma listens, but doesn't match the energy. He doesn't mirror the pain or pour his soul back into their lap. He may ask a sharp question or just nod and go quiet. That silence isn't rude, it's powerful and unnerving. You see, oversharers aren't always honest. They just confuse leaking emotion with being real. Sigma can sense that, and he doesn't reward it. This creates inner chaos. The oversharer starts pressing harder, getting more personal, more emotional. But it backfires, because Sigma won't bite. He sees the manipulation behind the drama, and he refuses to give them the fix. Eventually, they spiral. They'll accuse the Sigma of being emotionally unavailable or cold. But in truth, Sigma is just sovereign over his story and refuses to cheapen it for cheap connection. The result: the oversharer feels exposed, rejected, and powerless, because you can't extract vulnerability from someone who doesn't owe you his soul. 8. The approval addict. This personality lives for applause. They adjust themselves based on what gets the most likes, online or in real life. Every move, outfit, opinion, and action is filtered through one question: will they like me more if I do this? Now, imagine that mindset trying to coexist with a Sigma male. Sigma males do not seek approval, not because they're rebels, but because they've outgrown the addiction. Their compass points inward, not toward popularity. They move in silence, even if no one claps, especially if no one claps. This unbothered presence unsettles the approval addict. They crave validation like a drug, and Sigma refuses to be the dealer. He doesn't laugh on cue, doesn't follow trends, doesn't alter himself to fit any room. In fact, his refusal to seek approval draws more of it, and that drives the addict insane. They'll try harder, flatter more, dress bigger, perform louder. But Sigma doesn't respond, not because he's rude, but because he doesn't care. That emotional detachment triggers the addict's worst fear, being invisible. Eventually, they feel erased. Their tricks don't work. Their charm doesn't land. Sigma's silent eye contact feels heavier than a crowd's standing ovation, and they can't compete. So what happens? They either crumble or flip. Try to label the Sigma as arrogant or antisocial, but that's just projection. The truth is, Sigma exposed the addict's core wound. They've never felt valuable without applause, and now they've met someone who doesn't need a stage to win. 9. The Fragile Commander. This personality wears dominance like a costume. Loud voice, hard stares, constant reminders that they're in charge. But beneath the surface, insecurity. They need control to feel safe, power to feel worthy. They don't lead, they perform leadership, but then the Sigma walks in. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't posture. He doesn't need to prove anything. Yet somehow, the room shifts. People start paying attention, and not to the fragile commander, but to the quiet guy who said nothing. Why? Because the Sigma radiates real authority, not forced, not faked, just earned presence. And to the fragile commander, that's the ultimate threat. Their entire persona is built on appearing dominant. Sigma doesn't appear. He is. That's when the power struggle begins. The commander tries to reassert control, makes passive-aggressive remarks, challenges Sigma in subtle ways, maybe even outright tries to put him in his place. Sigma doesn't flinch. He either ignores them or dismantles them with one sentence. Or worse, silence. That's the worst thing you can give a fragile commander. It says, "You're not even worth engaging." That's psychological annihilation. Over time, the room starts to notice the difference. One is performing dominance, the other embodies it. One needs control, the other commands respect without asking. Eventually, the fragile commander either backs down or self-destructs trying to compete. Because in the presence of unshakable calm, fake power always cracks. And Sigma never had to raise his voice once. 10. The Guilt Leverager. This type uses guilt as a weapon. They play the victim, twist your actions, and make you feel responsible for their pain. It's a tactic, an emotional chokehold, and it works on most people, because most people are afraid of being seen as bad. But not the Sigma. Sigma males don't respond to emotional blackmail. They see it instantly. Their emotional radar is too sharp, their boundaries too solid. They know the difference between accountability and manipulation, and they don't confuse the two. So when the guilt leverager tries their tricks, crying, blaming, weaponizing empathy, Sigma doesn't fold. He listens. He might even show compassion, but he won't play the game. That drives the guilt leverager insane, because without guilt, they have no leverage. And Sigma? He's immune to forced shame. He's made peace with his flaws. He doesn't need anyone's permission to move on. Here's the brutal truth. The guilt leverager thrives on emotional confusion. But Sigma creates emotional clarity. He forces you to own what's yours and return what isn't. If you try to dump guilt on him, he'll politely return it, with interest. Eventually, the leverager runs out of tools. The manipulation fails. Their victim narrative collapses, and all that's left is someone exposed, stripped of their usual power. Because the only people who can be controlled by guilt are those who haven't mastered self-truth, and Sigma mastered it a long time ago. 11. The spotlight parasite. This type feeds off attention, not occasionally, but like a lifeline. They need to be seen, praised, and talked about. Their identity is tied to visibility. No spotlight, no self. And then they meet the Sigma, the man who doesn't want the spotlight, but still gets it. Sigma doesn't chase attention. He attracts it by being authentic, focused, and quietly excellent. That makes the spotlight parasite furious, because how dare someone who isn't trying get what they crave daily? They start trying harder, talking louder, stealing credit, throwing shade, anything to recenter themselves. But the more they push, the more people drift toward the Sigma. Why? Because energy doesn't lie, and the parasite's desperation is loud. Meanwhile, Sigma remains calm, cool, present. That energy is rare, and people feel it. He doesn't market himself, he becomes the market. The parasite tries to imitate, maybe even buddy up to him, but Sigma's radar spots inauthenticity from miles away. He keeps them at a distance, no drama, just disinterest. And that's devastating. Why? Because the parasite can handle hate, but not irrelevance, and Sigma's indifference is the deepest cut of all. Eventually, the spotlight parasite either implodes or fades, because they can't survive in a space where someone earned the room without playing the performance game. And Sigma? He just moves on to the next room, still not asking for attention, still owning it. 12. The drama engineer. This personality thrives on chaos. They stir tension, spread gossip, create conflict. Why? Because drama gives them a role. It makes them relevant. If things are calm, they feel invisible, so they create emotional storms and feed off the lightning. But Sigma, he's a storm-proof system. Drama doesn't pull him in, it repels him. He doesn't react emotionally, doesn't take the bait, doesn't argue for ego. That makes him dangerous to the drama engineer, because their entire game relies on reactions. So they test him, they drop passive jabs, try to triangulate him into tension, spread rumors. But the Sigma doesn't engage. He either removes himself or speaks with such sharp clarity that the game dies on the spot. This non-reactivity frustrates the engineer. They try bigger drama, maybe even emotional breakdowns. But Sigma won't dance. He knows that energy is currency, and he refuses to spend it on manipulation. And that's the turning point. Others start noticing. The engineer looks unstable. The Sigma looks solid. One screams. The other observes. And in every room, presence wins over noise. Eventually, the drama engineer runs out of material. Their tactics don't land. Their emotional chaos doesn't spread, because the Sigma didn't just avoid their storm, he drained its power source, attention. And the drama engineer learns the hard way. You can't build chaos in a room built on inner peace. Ascenders, now you know. Sigma males don't destroy with fists or arguments. They destroy with clarity, with silence, with non-participation in the games others depend on. They are the virus in broken systems, the glitch in emotional manipulation, the calm in the room of chaos. If you're a Sigma, or becoming one, understand this. You don't need to fight. You don't need to shout. You just need to stay grounded, stay unshakable, stay sovereign. Let your presence speak. Let your discipline echo. Let your silence burn louder than their noise. Because when you stop reacting, they stop controlling. So keep walking, keep sharpening, keep ascending. This is Sigma Ascends, and here we don't climb to fit in. We break ceilings with bare hands and quiet minds. Subscribe to the channel, not for hype, but for alignment. Until next time, Ascenders, walk alone, win completely.